Hello and welcome everyone who is on this wonderful celebration of Alaba's life and love, passionate, fiery love for Meher Baba. And I'm so very excited to see old and new friends, Mehrdad from Iran, Jamshid with his beautiful flute music. Said welcome everyone from east, west, north, and south. Jai Meher Baba. So really, without further ado, I would like to welcome and introduce our speakers. Mehrdad Namiranian is joining us from Tehran, and it's so wonderful that they have found a way around the Zoom controls and are here with us. And Farshid, who is here in Myrtle Beach with his beautiful wife Marjan, who will be facilitating the meeting by translating from Farsi to English. So, okay. Well, Jai Meher Baba, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Let's begin. Farshid Jan, please take the meeting in your capable hands and introduce Mehrdad.
That is my father's brother's son, basically. So we come from two different brothers. Let me give you a little background on Mehrdad's father. Mehrdad's father and his twin brother. His father's name was Khodayar and twin brother Khosrow. They were invited by Baba, or they were called by Baba to go to India to the Meher Ashram, or the Baba's school, in 1927. And so that's basically the background that we have. I don't want to go through the detail. And we were born in this family. Mehrdad was born in Khodayar's family, and I was born in Khodadad, which was the youngest brother. He didn't go to the school, but he met Baba later years. And Mehrdad spent a lot of time, especially during Amartiti time, with Aloba, and he is going to tell us about some of the experiences and the stories that he had with Alaba, and I try to the best of my knowledge, to try to translate it as much as I can. So with that said, if there is no question, by the introduction, I ask Mehrdad to come in and join and start talking. So Mehrdad جان بیا شروع کن در مورد من یه مقدمه ای از خودت گفتم و خودم که به اصطلاح سابقمون چی بوده در مورد بابا و پدر شما تو بابا رو دیده تو مهراشرام بوده با عمو خسرو و بعدم پدر من که رفت بابا رو ملاقات کرده چند باری و خلاصه مردم میخوام بدونن که مهرداد کی هست. در حال بعدش هم گفتم که شما خصوصا موقع امارتیتی با الابا خیلی در تماس، دوست داری که با ما داستانایی از الابا رو شریک بشی. خلاصه اگه چیز دیگه میخوای اضافه کنی برای مقدمه، اینا که میتونی شروع کنی برامون از الابا بگی.
جای بابا صدا من میاد؟
بله جای بابا.
تشکر میکنم از تمام دستاندرکاران که دعوت کردن. خیلی ممنون. علاوه از علاوه صحبت کنم دیگه اول.
Mehrdad is thanking everybody who basically put this program together, and then he likes to now start talking about Alaba. بفرمایید.
علاوه مملو از عشق بود، عشق بیکران. یعنی عشقش به حدی به بابا زیاد بود که غیر قابل توصیفه و خاطرات خیلی خاطرات باش داریم هر سفری که رفتیم و خیلی زیاده. حالا من نمیدونم در چه موردی باید از اون صحبت کنم، یاد کنم اونجا. یه وقت زمان کوتاست.
خوبه، هر جور دوست داری. فقط یه پاز بده که من هر جا یه مقدار که میگی براشون بگم. Mehrdad is saying Alaba was full of love. He had so much love for Baba, like an infinite, shoreless ocean of love. And basically, he spent the time with Alaba, and he's asking me, so we want the stories of Alaba. I said, yes, but please give me a little bit of time so I can translate for the audience what you say, and then that way we can proceed as we talk about things.
الابا اولی که باش آشنا شدم خب برای من یک شخص عادی بود. هیچ وقت از لحاظ اون قدرت روحانیش من بیگانه بودم، هیچ خبری نداشتم و اتفاقات پیش اومد که بخوام داستان اونا رو اگه بگم خیلی زیاده که چطور شد. یعنی حتی خانم من اون موقع جنگی که ما تو ایران داشتیم اصلا ممنوع خروج بود به خاطری که پزشک بود و به محضی که من اطلاع بهش دادم، روزی که نامه من رسید دستش، همون روز بعد از ظهرش بعدن که پیگیری کردم دیدم تمام پزشکان و پیران پزشکان اینا همه آزاد شدن و خانم من تونست پاسپورتشو بگیره و اولین سفری بود که اومد برای دیدن الابا. البته قبلش خیلی مخالف این کار.
So Mehrdad is saying that, you know, he met Alaba, he didn't know who basically Alaba was in regards to his spiritual powers. And he kind of took him as an ordinary person in the beginning. But what happened that he's going to tell us more about it is that his wife is actually a physician. And at the time, the physicians were not permitted to go out of Iran. And there is a story that he's going to definitely tell us about it. But after, you know, contacting Alaba in a means of some letter, I guess, the permission is given to all the physicians completely to be free to travel outside of Iran.
و کارهای دیگه خیلی برای من انجام داد، خیلی. و یک سفر که رفته بودم اونجا تو جمعیتی که به اصطلاح خیلی زیاد بود، 40,000 نفر برای زیارت اونجا اومده بودن. خانمم به من گفت که بریم یه زنگ بزنیم ایران ببینیم چه خبره. ما رفتیم مهردربار، اون موقع هنوز موبایل اینا نبود و از اونجا یادتون باشه زنگ میزدیم برای میومدن زنگ میزدن برای کشورهای دیگه. ما موقعی که زنگ زدیم از اونجا اومدیم برگردیم و یادتون باشه اون زمان به خارجی ها تو بیمارستان جا میدادن و نسس کوارتر و خانم ها یه قسمتی بودن، آقایون یه قسمتی. ما به اتفاق موقعی که اومدیم این مسیر جاده‌ای که اتوبوس ها می اومدن برای داخل مهرآباد که می رفتن هاستالا و از اون طرف هم ادامه پیدا میکرد برای بیمارستان، ما تو اون جاده که اومدیم بیام یه چند تا سگ جلو ما گرفتن و شدیداً پارس کردن و اجازه ندادن که ما راه رو بیش از این بریم جلو. به خانومم گفتم که ببین در وجود این سگ ها بابا هست و بابا میگه که ما این طرف نریم و دوباره برگشتیم به طرف لب خیابون و به طرف آتش دونی، ولی قبل از اون رایی که میاد برای دلمسرا از اون مسیر اومدیم جلو. حالا ترانسلیتش بکنم.
So anyway, when the physicians they're basically permitted to go out of Iran, that was his wife's first trip to India. And there was another trip that they made to India, and I guess turmoil or chaos happening in Iran, and they wanted to call and see how is everybody. So they went to Mehrdad. He said there was no cell phone at the time, so they went to Mehrdad to call. And after that, they decided to go through that path that comes from Mehrdad right in front by the Duni to go towards, or actually before the Duni, to go towards the hospital. I guess they were staying in the hospital area during the Amartiti. But then there were some dogs that they were barking, and Mehrdad tells his wife, okay, let's not go this way because, you know, Baba is in the dogs too. And when they are barking like that and they don't want us to go, so Baba doesn't want us to go this way. Let's go in a different way. So they come back and they go by the Duni behind the Dharamsala.
و اومدیم جلو به دلمسرا که داشتیم رد می شدیم که یه طرف دلمسرا هست، یه طرف سویج کیچن. ما بین این که رسیدیم یه دفعه از پشت سر ما تو تاریکی، حالا ساعت 9 شب بود، تو تاریکی دیدم صدای علی اکبر میاد که میگه مرداد مرداد مرداد. گفتم این صدای علی اکبر از کجا میاد؟ و همه میدونن که علی اکبر روز روشن چشمش درست نمیدید و تو تاریکی که من نمیتونستم درست تشخیص بدم چجوری من تشخیص داده بود، داشت صدا میکرد. و برگشتیم به طرف صدا و رفتیم پروش. بهم گفت که کی بناس بری ایران. اول دعوتمون کرد داخل اتاقش، رفتیم اونجا نشستیم. بعد به من گفت کی بناس بری. و اون سال من ویزای 1 ماه و نیمه گرفته بودم که اونجا بمونم تا بعد از تولد بابا برگردم. این به مزه که گفتم الان اگه بهش بگم میخوام 1 ماه و نیم بمونم، میگه نه زود باید بری، چون که هیچ وقت اجازه به من نمیداد که بیش از بعد از امرتیتی اونجا بمونم و وقت دیگه هم حتی اجازه بهم نمیداد که برم. یعنی حتی زمانی که مریض شده بود و سال قبلش هم بهم گفته بود که سال دیگه که بیاید من اینجا نخواهم بود و اینجا رو، یعنی ما رو برد سر مقبرش، گفت که سال دیگه من اینجا خاکم و خیلی متاثر شده بودم. البته این بماند در چیز بعدی خواهم گفت. و به من گفت که باید برگردم. کی بناس برم؟ گفتم که منم میرم.
Okay, this might be a good place to translate. So what happens is that it was during the nighttime. So when the dogs were barking and all that, they changed their path, and it was so dark that they couldn't see. But suddenly, Mehrdad starts hearing Alaba that says, "Mehrdad, Mehrdad," and then he looks back. He said, "Gosh, in this darkness, I can't even see. How can Alaba see?" But then he sees Alaba. They go to Alaba, and Alaba had a room. I guess during the Amartiti, Alaba had actually a little room behind the Dharamsala, and he would stay there overnight. So he takes them to the room, and he said, "Okay, how long are you going to be staying?" And Mehrdad had gotten a visa for a month and a half, and his intention was to stay there until after Baba's birthday. And then, anyway, he tells Alaba that this is my plan, and unfortunately it got cut off. I don't know if he can come back or not to tell us about the rest of it. The problem is that he discussed that with me, earlier, that there is a filtration in Iran that might not let them talk too much. They cut them off. So we wait for him to come back. But while waiting, I guess Angela or Farshid, if you want to invite other people to share stories until hopefully Mehrdad comes back and tell us about the rest of it.
Yes, we might as well use the time wisely and efficiently. So at this point, I would like for you guys to raise your hand digitally. And the instructions for raising the hand are, Angela, can you please post the instructions? I don't have ready access. So if you have a computer Mac, it's under More. You can raise your hand digitally, or just go like this and I should be able to see you. Angela? There you go. So on a PC, it's you press Alt and Y to raise your hand. And on a Mac computer, you press Option and Y together. And if you have a smartphone, iPad, or tablet, you click on More with the 3 dots, and then the raise hand is there. If you're calling from a landline, it's *9. So we have the first hand raised is Mehrdad John. Mehrdad, I will ask you to unmute yourself.
Hi, Jai Baba, everybody.
Hey, Baba.
Hey, Baba. This is a photo of Aloba in his room that I took sometimes in 1990s, probably 1994 or 1993. And, he asked me to make duplicate copies, oops. Hello, like about 100 copies, and I mailed it to him. And when he passed away, then the Los Angeles Baba group were going to do a program, a special program on anniversary, on memorial for Aloba. And I did have this photo in my camera, so I enlarged it and I took it to the center, and we had a wonderful memorial there in LA Center.
Can you show us again, please?
Pardon me, darling?
Can you show the picture again, please?
Yes, yes.
There you go.
There. Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay. My mother asked me to share some stories of her, and I just want to know how many minutes I have, so accordingly I summarize it.
Mehrdad, why don't you go ahead and take 5 minutes and give your story, and if there are no more raised hands, continue until he comes back.
Okay, sounds good. After beloved Baba dropped his body in January 31st, 1969, we were in Iran, in Tehran, with, a group of Baba lovers there. And the first Mandali who happened to come to to Iran, was Adik Irani. And then after him, Aloba, AliAkbar Shapurzaman Yazdi came, basically for the first time to Iran, after he left Iran when he was a young person. So I was quite young, maybe I was probably around 4 years old then. And when, he got there, my uncle, Farshid Namiranian, had a business, and in his business, he had some customers and clients. and from all over, basically, Iran, because he was in a import business, electronic import business. So he had clients from everywhere. And one of those clients happened to be devoted to a Murshid, a Sufi Murshid in Kermanshah. So when my uncle Khoda Bakhsh mentioned that AliAkbar Shapurzaman, which is being a very close disciple of Meher Baba, is coming to Tehran, he got very excited and he contacted his master, and the master invited him to go to Kermanshah for a visit and to talk about Meher.
بله داشتم خدمتتون میگفتم که ما رو دعوت کرد تو اتاقش و بعد بهم گفت که کی من از اینجا بری. گفتم منم میرم، همه میرن، همه باید بریم، کسی اینجا نمیونه. خلاصه هر چی کرد من خودم زدم به اون طرف. یه وقتی رو کرد به خانمم بهش گفت که خب شما کی بناس بری؟ گفت من فردا دارم میرم که برم بمبئی و از اونجا پرواز دارم. گفت بسیار خوب، مرداد تو هم همراهش میری؟ گفتم علی اکبر منو ببخش بابا، من میخوام بمونم تا تولد. گفت نه نمیشه، باید بری. گفتم که آخه برای چی؟ گفت اگه بمونی اینجا تمام اون چیزی هم که داشتی، یعنی گفتم اینجا میخوام بمونم، میخوام آرامش گیرم. گفت اگه اینجا بمونی تمام اون آرامشی هم که داشتی از دست خواهی داد. گفتم خیلی خوب. به ناچار حرکت کردیم اومدیم ایران. موقعی که اومدیم روی شب اردشیر عمم اومده بود که خانمون ببره. بعد گفت که مرداد تو که هنوز برام یه ماه دیگه میومدی چی شد؟ گفتم والا چیکار کنم، علی اکبر منو تیپایی کرد فرستاد ایران. و موقعی که اومدیم گفت حتما اتفاق برای کارگاه افتاده. چیزی گفتم فکر نمی‌کنم. ما هم موقع اتفاقا زمانی بود زنگ زدیم و بچه‌ها قبلش اونجا کارگاه ما رو بررسی کرده بودم، هیچ مشکل نبود. موقعی که رفتیم اونجا در کارگاه رو فرداش که رفته بودم در کارگاه باز کردم، دزد اومده و خیلی اساس اینا رو برده. حالا فرشید ترانسلیت.
So anyway, yeah, as I was saying, when they went to Alaba's room, Alaba asked him, okay, when are you going? Meaning going back to Iran. And he started deviating from that. He said, oh, everybody goes, I go, you go, nobody's going to stay and all that. Then Alaba doesn't get a straight answer from him. So he turns to his wife and says, when are you? He says, oh, I'm going to Bombay tomorrow and I'm going back to Iran after that. Then Alaba turns to Mehrdad and says, with your wife. Then Mehrdad said, Alaba, I've come here to stay another month until after Baba's birthday. I want to get some peace, be here in peace. I don't want to go back now. He says, I tell you, you go back. If you don't go back, you won't even have the peace that you have now. You will lose that too. So you better go. So he had no other choice. So he leaves tomorrow with his wife, comes back to Iran, and our cousin, which is our father's sister's son, Ardashir, who's passed away now, he comes and picks them up from the airport, takes them back home and all that. And then he tells, everybody and the kids, that I think everything is good with my place of work, because he had a place of work that he had his own business. And he says, I think everybody, the government has checked it, everything is okay. So I shouldn't have any problem. Why did Alaba send me back home? And then he goes the next day and then he opens the door to his business. He realizes that the thief basically has been theft, it's been robbed, and a lot of things have been robbed and taken away from his manufacturing business.
بعد از اونجا رفتم پلیس رو آوردم، پلیس منطقه‌ای رو مال آگاهی، و اومد دید و حتی بهشم پیشنهاد کردم که خب دزد من اگه پیدا بکنی من یک شیرینی خوبی هم بهت میدم. و گذشت، خیلی هم خوشحال بودم. بهم گفت چرا خوشحالی؟ گفتم به خاطری که میونه 40,000 نفر اون نه بلکه منو داشت میدید، بلکه خونه و اساس و زندگی و کارگاه اونا رو هم داشت تحت نظرش بود. و بچه ها که اومده بودن اینجا ندیدن که دزد زده، ولی اون از اونجا داشت میدید که دزد داره میاد تو کارگاه من و داره مشغول چه کاری هست. خوشحال بودم. چرا خوشحال نباشم؟ به خاطری که همه چی من زندگیم اصلا اون داشت نظارت میکرد از اونجا. الوبا قدرت فوق‌العاده بود، عشق خیلی زیاد بود و همه کاری، همه قدرت، همه چی داشت و خیلی جاها بود که عجیب منو همراهی میکرد، بام کار میکرد. و وقتی هم که یه مدتی گذشت من دیگه اصلا پیگیرش نشدم. یه وقتی از خود اداره آگاهی میان دزده رو میگیرن، یعنی اومده بوده که میخواسته بره، اونایی که برده بود میخواست بره بفروشه، فوری گرفته بودنش و بعد اعتراف کرده بود که از کارگاه ما دزدیده. اومدن کارگاه ما دیدن که به حساب ما نبودیم. از همسایه‌ام پرسیدم مال کیه؟ گفتم که این شوهرش خانم دکتر فلفلیه. رفته بودم بیمارستان، به خانم من گفته بودن که به شوهرت بگی بیاد اداره آگاهی، چرا دوست که کارگاهشو میزنه به ما خبر نمیده. اوکی؟ ترنسلیت بکن.
Yeah. So anyway, he calls the police station. They come and basically check the, his business, and they write down what has been stolen. And also, Mehrdad tells the police chief that if you find a thief, I give you some gift also to encourage them to look for the thief. But nothing happens after some time, and but he said, I was really happy because I knew that Alaba, being in India even, has this power of watching over me, watching over my business, seeing my house. Everything was under his control, and he was happy to know that. So anyway, after some time, the police chief catches the thief that was selling some of these merchandise or equipment, and they didn't know exactly, who the owner of the business is, but they then, when they go there, they find out that the doctor, his wife's name is Mahim Farfali. So they said, yeah, this is the business for Mahim Farfali's husband, because they knew the doctor. So anyway, he goes there, and the police chief basically says, these are yours. He says, yes, but as he said, I wasn't really after getting anything, but I was really happy to know that Alaba had so much power and looking over me, basically.
بعد اتفاقی که افتاد، ما رفتیم اداره آگاهی، دیدم خدا یه وسایل اونجا هست خیلی شبیه هر کسی هست، سلیقش مثل سلیقه من بوده که طریقه بسته بندی و فلان مثل ایناش. خیلی گفتم مال کیه که چیزه. فکر نمی‌کردم که اینا مال خودمه که دزد به حساب برده حالا اینجا هستش. بعد یه وقتی جناب فرهنگ بود اسمش، که اومد اونجا بهم گفت که شما اینجا چیکار داری؟ گفتم والا من نمیدونم، جناب فرهنگ منو خواسته. گفت من جناب فرهنگ هستم. شما؟ گفتم من مهرداد نمیرانیان. گفت آقا کارگاه تو دزد میزنه نباید به ما خبر بدی؟ گفتم چرا؟ من اون منطقه اونجا ما افسر اداره آگاهی اومدم بهش گفتم، زنگ زد اونجا با افسر اونجا که داشت صحبت میکرد. یه وقتی متوجه شدم که اون داره میگه که این دزدش الکیه و میخواد چیز بکنه. گفت چی الکیه؟ این ما خودمون الان دزد گرفتیم، وسایل هم که برده گرفتیم. و من اونجا قبل از که اتفاقم بیفته خوشحال بودم، میدونستم که چیزی هم که برده نمیتونه هیچ کار بکنه، چون که نظر الابا تمام وسایل اینا هست. الانش هم وسط بیابون همه اینا رو به امید اون گذاشتم، هیچ اصلا این خیال من نیست. و همه اینا به من برگشت و همیشه هم اصرار میکرد که من اونجا نمونم، اضافه نمونم. تا چندین سال، یعنی 2 سال بعد از که جسمش رو رها کرده بود. ترجمه بکن.
So anyway, when they found these, the items, they call him and he goes to the police station, and then the chief of that station told him, okay, are these your items? And he sees the items, but he doesn't recognize them because it's been such a long time between when it was stolen and when he saw them. But he thought that, gosh, these are exactly the same way I would wrap them or I would collect them and I would put them together. So then he says, yeah, I think these should be mine. And then he says, that chief says, why didn't you basically inform us that your items were stolen? And Mehrdad says, well, I basically, I let the chief of police in our region, in our district to know, and they knew about it. And then he said, okay, which district? And he calls that district and region, and he talks to the chief of police there, and they say, oh, he reported that to us, but we thought it's all phony and fake and all that. He said, what are you talking about, fake and phony? We captured the thief and all the merchandise is here. And then Mehrdad, anyway, he knew that Alaba is taking care of all these for him, and the reason he didn't let him be there was because of all these that he needed to go through. And so anyway, he got that, and now hopefully he goes back and gives us some story in India. Mehrdad, tell us a little bit about Oh, okay. معین اونجاست ترجمه میکنه.
نه، رکسانا اینجاست الان. بعد همیشه اصرار میکرد که من بیش از یعنی بعد از عملکرد فوری اونجا رو یعنی ول بکنم برگردم به کشور خودمون. وقتی که جسمش رو رها کرده بود، سال بعدش بود، من اومدم، نمیدونم 2 سال بعدش بود، اومدم گفتم خب من که چیز هست، بیام حالا یه ویزا مالتیپل بگیرم که برای 5 سال به هر تعدادی که میخواستم میتونستم بیام و برگردم. اون ویزا رو ما گرفتیم، ویزای استودنتی بود که از طرف تراست جور شده بود. نه استودنتی بود، مالتیپل. و از طرف تراست نامه که به اون داده بودن گرفته بودم، اونجا ویزا رو گرفتیم و برگشتیم رفتیم اونجا. موقعی که رفتیم عملکرد تموم شد، ما اومدیم برگشتیم، اومدیم فرودگاه و فرودگاه به ما اجازه ندادن، گفتن که نه شما 14 روز وقت داشته که اینو خودتو به پلیس معرفی بکنی و این کار نکردی. گفتم چرا؟ من اونجا رفتم گفتم مالتیپل هیچ مشکلی نیست. گفتن نه باید فرم بنا بود می‌نوشی اینا و تا اون فرم نداشت بشه نمیتونی برگردی. دوباره مجبور شدم برگردم احمد نگر و اون فرم رو چیز کردم و اجازه خروج گرفتم و برگشتم. و 2 ماه بعدش مهرداد معتمدی بود، اومد در خونه ما بعد از عید بود، گفت که مهرداد من میخوام برم و بلد نیستم برم. گفتم خب بلیط میگیری میری؟ گفت نه بلیط ایرانر گرونه، مال العربی گرفتم ارزونه، به خاطر من میخوام اونجا بمونم و ایرانر رفت و برگشته، اون یکی یه طرفه بهم میده. گفتم خب میره اونجا تو شارجر اون چیزای خروجی و ورودی رو نگاه میکنی یا مشخصه کدوم تبری؟ گفت میترسم گم بشم، خواهش میکنم همراهم بیا اینا. ما هم گفتم خب ویزا مالتیپل داریم، مشکلی که نیست، میرم برمیگردم. به خانم گفتم خانم من میرم 4-5 روز دیگه برمیگردم، دارم میرم هند برگردم. من گفت خیلی خوب باشه. یه ساک خیلی کوچیک برداشتم بدون که چیز اضافه بردارم، فقط یه دست لباس بود و زدم اومدم هند. موقعی که اومدم هند به تاگات زنگ زدم و افسری که اونجا بود گفتم که تاگات من اومدم. گفت که شما؟ گفتم مهرداد. گفت کدوم مهرداد؟ گفتم مهرداد بزرگ، مهرداد نمیرانیان. گفت نه با کدوم ویزا؟ گفتم ویزایی که داشتم مالتیپل. گفتم نه من اونو باطل کردم، زود بیا اینجا ببینم کجا هستی. گفتم خب ما سری ریکشا گرفتیم و رفتیم اداره پلیس و پلو تاگات. گفت من ویزای تو رو باطل کردم، تو گفتی دیگه نمیای. مگه دیوونه شدم ویزای مالتیپل بگیرم و بیام یه سفر برگردم بگم چه جان. 6 ماه اونجا موندم و هر دفعه سر خاک علی اکبر میرفتم میگفتم منو ببخش که گوش به حرفت نکردم و اینجور شد. حالا اون چی میدید چی جوری بود که حتی وقتی که استخون رون پا شکسته بود اجازه نداد که من برم، گفت تو نباید بیا، تو فقط وقت عملیاتی میای برمیگرد، وقت دیگه نباید بیا که برات خیلی گرون میشه. اوکی.
So yeah, each time Alaba's, persistence was after Amartiti, you go back to Iran. Don't stay here too long. So, but what he does, 2 years after Alaba passes away, he decides to get a letter from the trust and get a spiritual training visa that the trust was issuing at the time. So he gets one of those visas for 5 years, multiple. And then he travels to India with this multiple visa. But what happens, I guess there were a couple of other murders with his, which were mistaken by him, from what I heard also in the past, that his visa gets basically, they cancel his visa without him knowing. So he, but first time he goes, because he had the multiple visa, he thought that he can stay as long as he wants and come back as long as he wants. So he stays there, and then when he goes after 14 days to the airport to leave, they said, no, you can't leave because you didn't report to the police. You have to go back to the police station and file a report that you had been staying there and all that. So he goes back, he has to go back to Ahmadnagar, fill out this form, and anyway, they let him out, but the next time he goes, his visa was canceled, and he didn't know. So as soon as he gets to the airport, they called him and said, hey, you came with a canceled visa, and we can't let him, let you be here. He said, no, I had a 5-year multiple. But anyway, the argument was that, no, your visa was canceled. So he goes to Ahmadnagar to work this visa out. He had to stay there for a long period of time, like 6 months or so. And he says, during these 6 months, I was going to Aloba's grave and say, Alaba, you told me go back to Iran after Amartiti, don't stay here too long. And I didn't listen to you. I'm sorry. And he, every day, he would go and say that, I'm sorry about that. And he says that, I didn't know. He was seeing a lot of things that I didn't know, and he advised me, but I didn't listen to his advice. So Mehrdad, tell us a little bit about other stories that you have. یه خود در اون داستانی دیگه رو بگو که مثلا چه اتفاقایی افتاد باهاش بودی که اینا در مورد
خب خیلی حکایت ها خیلی زیاده. یه وقت رفته بودیم پلو الابا، گفتیم الابا بهم گفت چه خبر، چه کار داری میکنی؟ گفتم هیچی، میخوام که از یزد برم آمریکا. گفت که نه، تو هیچ کاری نباید بکنی. گفتم که خب پس من میرم شیراز. گفت نه، نباید بری شیراز. گفتم بخوام برم تهران. گفت نباید بری تهران. گفتم خب چی کار باید بکنم؟ گفت فقط یزد باید باشی. گفتم الو با خواهش فلان بسار، نه هر کاری کردیم. بعد گفت خب حالا که خیلی اصرار میکنی، رو 2 تا کاغذ برداشت نوشت که مرداد آزاد هر جایی که دوست داره بره. مرداد یک دیگه نوشت مرداد فقط تو یزد باید باشه. و گفت این 2 تا رو میری میذاری تخت بابا و میگی خواهش میکنم بابا من راهنمایی کن که چه کار کنم، و یکیش خانمت هر کدوم برداشت اون جوابه، اون یکی رو شما بردار بیا که تخت بابام هیچی نباشه. گفتم اوکی. شاهین برادر مرجان خانمم اون سال اونجا بود و در میاد به شاهین میگه که حالا موقعی که مرداد جواب میاره، بابا میگه مرداد باید تو یزد باشه. و ما اومدیم کاغذ که باز کردیم بیماره نوشته، گفتیم خب حالا که تو شد مجبوریم باشیم میمونیم. بعدش که از اتاقش اومدیم بیرون، شاهین به من گفت که آره حالا وقتی رفتید به من گفت که جواب این میشه موقعی که میره. گفتم خیلی خوب، اون حالا هر چی میدونه هر کاری میکنه دیگه اوکیه.
Another story that Mehrdad remembers is when he was with Aloba, because I told him, tell us a little bit about the time that you were with Aloba, give us some story of that time. And he says, once I was, in India with him, and I told Alaba that Alaba, I like to go. Then Alaba says, okay, where are you? He says, I'm in Yaz, but I like to go to America. And Alaba says, no, you stay in Yaz, you don't go to America. But if I go to Shiraz, if I go to Tehran, he says, no, you stay in Yaz, you don't go anywhere. He says, well, Mehrdad insists that, no, I like to travel, I like to go here and there. And then Alaba says, okay, we're going to ask Baba. And Alaba writes 2 notes and folds them. One was that Mehrdad stay in Yaz, or Mehrdad go to America or other places. And then he folds them, he gives it to his wife. He says, you go put it on Baba's bed, in Baba's room. And then you pick up one of those. So his wife was supposed to pick up the one that was supposed to be what Mehrdad needs to do. And then the other one, Alaba tells Mehrdad, you pick up the other one and you bring it because I don't want anything to stay on Baba's bed. So while they were going to Baba's room, Shaheen, Marjan's brother, was there also in Alaba's room. And Alaba tells Shaheen that, when they come back, the answer is that Mehrdad has to stay in Yaz. So this is all before even they put it on Baba's bed. And then when they come back, Maheen, his wife, brings the paper, and it was saying Mehrdad needs to stay in Yaz. So when they open up, and Mehrdad knows that he needs to stay in Yaz, so as they're walking out, and Shaheen is walking out with them, Shaheen tells Mehrdad, before you left, Alaba told me this is going to be the answer.
یکی از حکایاتی که الان داره یادم میاد، موقعی بود که من یه وقتی میدم الابا ماو میکنه، یه وقتی شعری میخوند، 2 دوز رفتم پی دزدیدن بز، یک بز دزدید بز دیگر، 2 بز دوز یه بزی گفت به دوز 2 بز، من دوز 1 بز دزدیدم تو دوز 2 بز. این برای خارجی ها که فارسی نمیدونستن همه ز میگفتن و اون هم به این صورت ملت رو مشغول میکرد. خیلی برام گنگ بود که چرا این کارا رو میکنه، یه شخص روحانی که به حساب اینقدر قدرت ها داره، برای من خیلی کارا کرده بود و اینا و خیلی بالاتر از یه حرف هاست، چرا اینجوری چیز میکنه. و توی این سوالا بود، ولی خب رومم نمیشد بهش بگم. به وقتم بهم میگفت خب مرداد سوال داری، هیچ وقت جرأت این که یه حرفا رو بهش بزنم نداشتم. یه روز تو اتاق الابا بودیم، یه خانم خارجی اومد که مسئول مهرآزاد بود، گفت الابا الان وقت تایم شماست که باید بیا تو مندلی حال مهرآزاد صحبت بکن. ما به بچه‌ها زیاد بودیم تو اتاق الابا، 30 نفر میشدیم. یه وقتی گفت اوکی، بلند شد و از اتاقش که اومد بیرون، بقیه در اومدن گفتن که خب ما که انگلیسی نمیفهمیم، حالا الابا میخواد صحبت بکنه، برای اونا میخواد صحبت کنه، ما میریم. آقا هر کدوم یه جای گذاشتن رفتن، منم همراه علی اکبر داشتم میرفتم که بریم اتاق مندلی حال مهرآزاد. یه وقتی رو برگردم گفت بقیه کجا رفتن؟ گفتن انگلیسی نمیفهمن رفتن. گفت نه بهشون بگو بیان، من هم انگلیسی صحبت میکنم هم فارسی، هر دو تاش صحبت میکنم، بهشون بیان. ما هم رفتیم به بچه‌ها گفتم خب برگرده الابا هم انگلیسی صحبت میکنم هم فارسی. موقعی که اومدن الابا یک چیز خیلی قشنگی گفت وقتی که مرغ رو تخم مرغ میخوابه هیچ وقت مدیتیشن رو تخمش نمیکنه. تخم مرغ هم رو مرغ هیچ مدیتیشن نداره و بعد از 20 روز که میشه تخم مرغ تبدیل میشه به جوجه و در میاد. اون جوجه از گرمای وجود مرغ داره استفاده میکنه و تبدیل میشه به جوجه. ما که اومدیم اینجا، ما داریم از گرمای اون انرژی بابا داریم استفاده میکنیم برای پیشرفت روحانی و کم کم اون سانسکارا ما قبل اون آگاهی داره به ما میرسه، برای پیشرفت کم کم داریم پیشرفت میکنیم. و به خاطری که حوصلمون اینجا سر نره، با مشغولیت داشته باشیم، ماو و برای که دوباره اسم صدای گربه در آوردن و یه خوردم چیز کردن که خب ملت رو بخندونه و زیاد از اینکه اونجا هستن در فشار نباشن، در ضمنی که زیر گرمای انرژی بابا هستن. اوکی.
You know, Aloba sometimes had a very good sense of humor, and a lot of times he would say it in Persian, meow meow, or you know, those raftan paydos. Then it would mean two thieves went to steal a goat, and you know, but when you say it in Persian, it's all ze basically. There is a lot of ze in there, and sometimes he would say, if someone who has, you know, who can't talk very well, if they say this, then they can talk, you know. Sometimes he would say that. So anyway, this was a question in him that, you know, such a spiritual man like this, why is he making jokes out of things and all that? He wasn't really interested in hearing this. But what happened there in his room, in Alaba's room, that little room, a lot of Persians are sitting there, you know, talking to him, and he's talking to them. Suddenly somebody comes from who was, you know, responsible for the talks in the Mandali Hall, and tells Alaba that, okay, it's your turn now to come to Mandali Hall and speak, basically talk. And Alaba says, okay, I'm ready, and he walks out, and Mehrdad is following Alaba, but a lot of other Persians, they just, you know, dispersed to other places, and nobody's there. So Alaba looks back and says, what happened to the others? He said that, you know, they said that it's going to be all in English, so they won't understand English. And then Alaba said, no, go tell them, you know, it's all, I'm going to translate it. I'm going to say it in English and Persian, so they should come. So he goes and collects. In the Mandali Hall, Alaba starts talking, and after some talk, he says, you know, a chicken a hen, when it has laid eggs and is sleeping on the eggs, that hen is not meditating on the eggs. And the eggs also, which are laid under the hen, they don't meditate on the hen either. He said, this is how we are. We are under his umbrella, basically Baba's umbrella, under his spiritual power. And he is taking care of it. He's under, we are getting that warmth, that spiritual warmth from him, like the mother hen, as like basically the eggs. And when the time comes, after that 20 days for the chicken, when the time comes for us, that warmth and attention that the mother has given naturally and eventually will give us basically that spiritual push and progress that we need. And then the egg becomes the, the chicken or the chicks, and we become what we have to become. And then again, it starts basically saying meow, 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 and makes a joke and basically finishes up the story like that. That was a nice story, though. The hen and بفهم.
فرشید چقدر وقت داریم؟
والا فکر کنم یه 10 دقیقه دیگه وقت داشته باشیم. آره.
10 دقیقه دیگه اوکی. یکی از وقت امرتیتی الوبا همیشه می اومد اونجا اتاق بابا، اون لب اتاق بابا میشه رو به صمدی و بنا میکرد ملت رو ویزیت میکرد و ویزیت کردنش هم من همیشه موقع که میرفتم فوری بهم میگفت برم پلوش بشینم و بغل کنار دستش یک کیسه بود شکلات توش بود و یک کیسه دیگه به حساب عکس اون که جلو سینه میزنن اکیتت عکس بابا هست که جلو سینه میزنن اون بود و الابا یکی یکی صحبت‌های اینا رو گوش میکرد، میومد میگفت الابا من اینجور میومد میگفت که من اینجور مشکلی دارم اینجور فلان اینجور میگفت خب بگو ببینم آرتی بابا رو میخونی یا فلان بخونی بخوب ببینم و موقعی که به اون زبان گوجاتی معرتی اینا که میخون میگفت ها اینجاش اشتباهه اینجاش باید به این صورت بخونی اینجا چیه بخون اگه درست بخونی کارتون مشکل تو حل میشه. بیا یه این عکس بابام بهش میده با یه شکلات و عکس بابا به همون قیمتی که دم مغازه میدادن اون پولش ازش میگرفت. منم شده بودم صندوق دارش و هر موقع هم که تموم میکرد دوباره بهم میداد میگفت برو بگیر برده بیار. گفتم خیلی خوب. و خیلی هم میومدن اونجا که سال گذشته ازش بچه میخواستن، کار میخواستن، فلان میخواستن، سلامتی میخواستن، هر چی میخواستن بهشون داده بود و میومدن که تشکر بکنن و دیدم با این صف هم خیلی طولانی بود. یعنی هر وقتی که میرفتی تو این صف یعنی من ساعتها بغل دستش میشستم واقعا دیگه خسته میشدم، یه جور دیگه میخواستم در برم و اون با انرژی تموم میشست داشت کار خودش ادامه میداد. یه وقت عکس میخواستن از علی اکبر بگیرن، علی اکبر گفت در روپیه بده من، بعد عکس میگفت علی من این در روپیه رو بده میدم نمیخواد پول از کسی بگیره. گفت نه 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 این کار نکن، من این در روپیه رو ازشون میگیرم که امدفعه عکس من موقعی که چاپ میشه با جون دل عکسشون عکس منو میذارم اونجا، ولی اگه این در روپیه نگم پاره میکنم میذارم تو سطح آشغالی. و این پولام که البته جمع میشد برای یه جای مختلف که به حساب احتیاج بود اینا نمیدونم یک ریال هم چیزی برای خودش نه برمی داشت نه کاری به کارش داشت نه هیچی و هر کس هم هر چی بهش میداد از این دست میگرفت اون دستش رد میکرد، هیچی برای خودش یک ریال نه برداشت نه چیز کرد. یعنی حتی اون موقع که کوچیک بود از پهلو بابا مدرسه بابا تعطیل شد که دوباره برگشته بود به پهلو داییش، از اونجام که دوباره میره تا خودشون میرسونه به بابا با خیلی مشقات اینا، بابا بهش میگه تو برو من کمک بهت میکنم ولی چیز نباید بکنی، کسی نباید کار تو رو بکنه، بزنی نباید دست بزنی، فلان نباید کن، در صورت خود باور بشونه. این هم با جون و دل قبول میکنه، میره توی مغازه بوده مشغول کار میشه. روز اولم بهش میگن که تو باید بیرون بخوابی، میگه باشه اشکال نداره. و بعد کم کم میاد تو و بعد اونجا جاش بهش میدن. بعد صاحب کارگاهش میگه خب این حکایتش خیلی زیاده، من همش دارم شورتش میکنم، کوتاش دارم میکنم براتون. بهش میگه خب روز اول خب مجانی داشته کار میکرده، سال اول، سال بعدش 1 انود 2 انود، 1 روپیه 2 روپیه تا میاد 5 روپیه. بعد اون صاحب مغازش هم یه دختر داشته که به اونم حتی درس خوندن یادش میده. اولم که میره دامن که پوشیده بوده بهش میگه برو شلوار بپوش بیا. و صاحب مغازه زنش لباسه اونو یه بار شسته بوده که وحشتناک بهش میتوپه، بهش میگه چرا این کار کردی؟ من فقط خودم باید، پیر من بهم گفته باید کار خودم بکنم، حالا چون این کار کردی باید یه دفعه من لباسای تو رو بشم که این تلافی اون بشه. و میگذره یک روز صاحب مغازه در میاد میگه که من تو این دنیا فقط این دخترم دارم، چیز دیگه ندارم، بیا این دخترم باشه مال تو، فقط تو اجازه بده تو این اتاقی که تا حالا تو زندگی میکردی من و خانمم با هم زندگی کنم. میگه من نه مغازه میخوام، نه پول میخوام، نه چیز میخوام، هیچ چی نمیخوام، من منتظرم که پیر من به من بگه که من برم. یعنی این آخرین امتحانی بوده که بابا از الوبه میگیره و روز بعدش تلگراف بابا به دستش میرسه که بیا. و تمام پولایی که تو این مدت اونجا تو اون صندوقش، اون قطی که اونجا بوده هم میداخت در چی بهش میدادن، بدونی که چیزش هم برداره، بدونی که چیزی هم همینطوری، فقط تلگراف نشون صاحب مغازش میده که میگه من دیگه رفتم و جا میذاره میاد پلو بابا.
Okay, I think this is going to be probably the last story because we don't have time, but it was a beautiful story. One was that he talked about the time that Alaba, would come during the Amartiti, and he would basically sit right where the Baba's room is and lean against Baba's room, looking towards Baba's Samadhi. And what he says is right. The queue, the line to go see Aloba sometimes would be way larger than the line going to the Samadhi. And actually, that was a joke that I once looked and I told I think it was Erich, I was sitting next to Erich. I said, Erich, look at Aloba's line, see how big that is compared to the line to Baba's Samadhi. And we both started laughing. But anyway, Alaba would sit there and he had a bag next to him. And Mehrdad, when he would go to see Alaba during those times, Alaba would say, okay, sit here next to me and, you be my accountant. So what Alaba would do in this bag, he had a lot of pictures of Baba. And people would come, they would tell him, I came last year, I wanted a child, or I wanted my daughter to get married, and they got married, or they didn't. And basically they would say their stories, or what they wanted when they had come this time. So Alaba would say, okay, do you know how to say the prayers? They would say, yes, we do. So we say, okay, go ahead and, start saying the prayers. And they would say, no, you are wrong here. You should say it this way. That word is not right. So he would correct them, and then we say, okay, now if you say the prayers correctly, your prayers would be answered. And then, he would give them a picture of Baba, and he would collect the same money. He wouldn't give it for free. He would collect the same money that he had paid for the picture. So as the picture number would reduce, he would ask Mehrdad to take the money and go buy more pictures. And Mehrdad would go get more pictures and would come back. And, some people said, Alaba, can we take a picture with you? He would say, yes, but, it's going to cost you 10 rupees. So he would collect money. And Mehrdad was surprised Alaba, here, I give you money and I give you 10 rupees. Why do you collect money from this? And the same thing with Alaba, actually. I said, Alaba, here, I give you, 200, 300 rupees. Why do you want to collect money from this place? He said, no, I don't want your money. I want them to pay for it, because that way, when the picture comes out or they take Baba's picture, they don't throw it away because they had paid for it, so they keep it dearly. They keep it dearly. They keep it next to them. So that's basically how he would collect. And this money, he would never spend it for himself or anything like that. He would spend it for Baba's work. And then he goes back, Mehrdad goes back to the story of the time of, Mayor Ashram, Prem Ashram time. When Baba closed the school, Alaba basically didn't go back to Iran. He went back to his uncle in Bombay. He stayed there and he wanted to see Baba, and Baba said, stay there and I will call you when the time comes. And anyway, Alaba starts working in a store, and the store man would, basically had given him a corner to sleep. And, he had asked Alaba also to teach his daughter. He had a young daughter. So Alaba would teach the daughter, and the daughter was in a skirt first, and Alaba said, no, you go put your pants on, you don't come here in front of me with a skirt. And anyway, he collected, some money working there. At the end, the storekeeper tells Alaba, also Baba had told him, you don't let anyone to do your work. Basically, you do your own work. You wash your own clothes, you prepare your own food and all that. So the storekeeper's wife once washes Alaba's clothes, and Alaba says, no, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. And then he says, because of you did that, I have to wash your clothes now one time. So he wanted to balance everything the way Baba had asked him to do. So he did that. And then at the end of, basically, the storekeeper was getting old, and he got to know Alaba even more. And he asked Alaba, okay, I want you to marry my daughter, and but let me sleep where you slept or where you were with my wife. You take my place and I take your place. And Alaba said, no, I am only here until my master, and I'm not interested in your daughter or getting married or anything like that. I'm waiting for my master's call. And actually Baba was, because Baba's, call comes the next day, the letter comes that he can go be with Baba. And then he shows that letter to the storekeeper and says, okay, here it is, and I'm leaving. And he leaves all the money, everything that he had collected there, and he walks away and goes to stay with Baba. I think we are out of time. If any question, please ask Mehrdad, and I try to translate, and then we go.
Yes, Farshid John. Let's take the next 5 to 10 minutes with maybe even 10 to 15, depending, because we also want to leave time for others to share their Alaba stories.
Right.
So I will ask people to raise their hand if they have a question to ask Mehrdad, and we'll take those. And then afterwards, I would like to open it up to everyone who would like to share their own Alaba stories. So does anyone have any questions for Mehrdad? Please raise your hand.
جای بابا.
جای بابا. جای بابا.
آقا مهرداد، حقیقت شنیدم که شما با اون نزدیکی که با آلوبا داشتین در مخصوصا مهرآباد و اینها، آلوبا یه پیشگویی هایی در زمینه وضعیت ایران کرده بود پیش شما. اینو می‌خواستم اگه محبت بکنید که ببینیم پیشگویی های آلوبا در مورد وضعیت ایران به شما چی بوده؟ ما اینو دوست داشتیم بدونیم.
Okay, the question was, and I don't know how briefly Mehrdad can answer that he said that because of your, your closeness to Aloba, we know that Alaba has talked about the future in Iran and, things that might be happening in Iran. And they are asking Mehrdad, okay, can you tell us what Alaba's, Alaba basically talked about these things. So I don't know. I mean, I heard Mehrdad talk about this, but it's a long. Some of these are very long. And Mehrdad, can you make it short, Mehrdad?
Farsi.
سعی میکنم که کوتاش بکنم، ولی این مطالب خود بالاست، ولی خیلی به خاطر که این پیشبینیایی که علابا کرد تو صفحه حساب در شام بودیم. علابا یعنی همیشه من همراه میکرد که با همدیگه میرفتیم تو صف درشن. بعد یه وقتی دیدم که به زبون هندو، گوجراتی، مراتی، انگلیسی و بعدش هم فارسی شروع کرد. یعنی موقعی که به فارسی آخر کار داشت میگفت، من متوجه شدم که داره چی میگه، که جنگ میشه، آتش فشان میشه، آتش سوزی میشه، سیل میشه، زلزله میشه، کشتار میشه. بعد کشتار زیاده که از جوی آب به جوی آب خوب جاری میشه. و به این صورت برای ما گفت و بعدش هم گفت که خب موقع هم که میری برو تو ایران برای همه بگو. ما دیم خدایا این حرفه که داریم میزنه ها، مریضی هم به حد میاد که خیلی ها از این مریضی شروع میکنن مردن. ما گفتم خیلی خوب. و بعد در اومدم بهش گفتم الابا ببخشید من این دارم میگم، ولی خانومم که پزشکه، من اینو میدونم که هر مریضی که بیاد به 24 ساعت نمیکشه که واکسنشو درست میکنن، همه چیش درست میشه و این مرگ و میری نداریم. بهم گفت برو تو نمیفهمی. منم به خاطر که خب سن و سالش بود، خیلی چیزا ازش دیده بودم و این یه خورده برام نمیتونستم قبول بکنم، ولی به ناچار سکوت کردم، هیچی هم نگفتم. شد اومدیم ایران، برای یکی از دوستا گفتیم اینجور چیزی اینا بود. شد تا آخر سال که دوباره وقت به حساب امرتیتی بود، دوباره میخواستم برم هند. بر حسب اتفاق زنگ زدم بهش گفتم که داریش تو کاری داری هند؟ من دارم میرم اونجا. گفت آره وایسا کی داری بری؟ گفتم من یه ساعت دیگه دارم میرم که برم تهران، از تهرانم دارم میرم اونجا. گفت وایسا من اومدم. طولی نکشید اومد در خونه و یخه ما رو چسبید و گذاشت اون سینه دیوار رو. گفت که ببین پارسال یه حرفایی که زدی هیچ کدوم نشد. گفتم والا من نگفتم، علی اکبر گفت. گفت ببین من اینو بهت بگم که میگن حرف مرد خدا 30 سال طول میکشه، یعنی صبر خدا میگن 30 سال طول میکشه. برو اونجا ازش بپرس این حرفایی که زده از کی شروع میشه. ما برگشتیم اومدیم. الابا ما رو دید گفت از ایران چه خبر؟ گفتم هیچ. هر روز از من میپرسه چه خبر؟ من میگفتم هیچی، اصلا یادم نبود، اصلا فراموش کرده بودم. روزی که بود که فرداش به حساب امرتیتی تموم میشد و ما داشتیم برمیگشتیم ایران، نشسته بودیم زیر چادری بود که ما بین نسس کوارتر و بیمارستان زده بودن که اونجا غذا میخوردیم. اونجا داشتیم غذا میخوردیم، یه وقت دیدم دوباره حرف پارسال شروع کرد. گفتم وایسا من این صحبتی که پارسال کرده بذار من بخوام برات میگم. و تو ایران گفتن که این صحبت شما از کی شروع میشه و از کی شروع شدنش. حالا بخوام اینو برات بگم خیلی چیزای زیاده، ولی کل ماجرا رو من برات میگم که اتفاقی است که گفت موقعی که خط راهن کرمان زاهدان افتتاح میشه، کبریت جنگ جهانی سوم رو میزنن کبریت جنگ جهانی سوم به منزله این نیست که گاز باشه یه دفعه آسمون منفجر بشه، اینجوری نیست. بنزین هم نیست که روی سطحی باشه و با اون صورت بخواد انجام بشه، آتش بگیره یه دفعه اوف همینجا آتش بگیره. نه، یک هیزم خیلی بزرگیه و کبریت اون موقعی که میبرن میشینن زیر جلوش خودشون آتش میزنن یا آتش جلو خودشون میبینن، بعد از طولی نمیشه، بعد از یه روز آتش خاموش میشه. ما میگیم خب این کبریت تموم شد، ولی اثر اون کبریت آتشش از زیر میره اون طرفتر، دوباره اونجا میزنه بالا، دوباره اونجا خاموش میشه اون ورتر میزنه بالا، دوباره خاموش میشه اون ورتر، هی خاموش میشه روشن میشه، خاموش میشه روشن میشه، دور این هیزم عظیم هی انجام میشه تا بعد یک دفعه همش گر میزنه میاد بالا. تو این فاصله اینقدر پول ایران بی ارزش میشه که اصلا من نمیتونم تصور کنم بگم. و خیلی سیل، زلزله، آتشفشان و خیلی چیزهای آسمانی هست که وارد میشه و ملت تو زجر میفتن، بنا میکنن مثل که تاوه کف پاشون باشه و هی آتش داره زیر پاشون روشن باشه، دارن بالا پای میپرن. گفتم اینجور که داره میگه پس تر و خشک با هم میسوزن. گفت نه، این تو این قسمت درست نیست که تر و خشک با هم میسوزن. اگر یکی باشه که بابا رو یاد بکنه، اون میشه یک هیزم تر و هیچ وقت هیچ گزندی بهش وارد نمیشه. تمام اینا وارد میشه برای بیداری که بابا خواسته و این بیداری با این فشارهایی که به ملت میاد ملت رو بیدار خواهد کرد. و گفتم خب بالاخره چطور میشه؟ گفت بالاخره 4 تا بمب اتم هست که در آن واحد در 4 نقطه میزنن و بعد از اون دیگه دنیا آروم میشه. حالا چطوری دیگه بماند. اوکی. من یه اتفاقی افتاد سال 88 بود. من روز پنجشنبه بود، نشسته بودم پای تلویزیون. یه وقتی هم تلویزیون اعلام کرد که خط کرمان زاهدان افتتاح شد. گفتم واو، پس این کبریت جنگ جهانی سوم زدم، پریدم بیرون نگاه کردم آسمون آبی خیلی راحت فلان بسایونه، هیچ خبر نیست. گفتم که خب این کبریت جنگ جهانی سوم زدم ولی علی اکبر گفت گاز نیست که منفجر بشه، پس نمیشه، پس آتش هم نیست بیاد اینجا، حالا چجوریه؟ و روز پنجشنبه بود، روز جمعه انتخابات دوره دوم احمدی نژاد بود و شنبه آتشی بود که ما جلو خودمون دیدیم و بعد از اون آروم شد. و بعد دیگه بعد از اون بود اتفاقایی که تمام اینا پیش بینی کرده بود یکی یکی به وقوع پیوست. البته ما یکی از پیش بینیاش هم این بود که پاکستان از بین میره، هند و ایران هم مرز میشه و تو پیش بینیاش این یک قسمتش مونده و 4 تا بمب اتمی که باید بزنن و من نمیدونم کجا خواهند زد و هیچ خبری از هیچی ندارم. همین اینا رو دیگه مونده، بقیه همه چیزایی که گفته بود همش یکی انجام شده.
So anyway, this is the question. You guys got the question, but the answer is not only related to Iran, but also a lot of it related to the whole world. What happened in one of the Amartitis, Alaba goes on the stage and starts talking in Gujarati, Marathi, Hindi, and then at the end in Persian, because Mehrdad was there, but he didn't know what the Alaba is talking about until it comes to Farsi, and then when he talks about in Farsi, then Mehrdad knows what's going on. And Alaba says, the time will come. And a lot of these actually are in what is called what a meaning of a word is. And in Farsi, this is translated by Alaba himself. It's called گفتن یک کلمه یعنی چه. Baba talks about all these, world chaos and the things that will happen. So anyway, the chaos is that Alaba says, it will come a time that, the money in Iran will be worthless. There is going to be a lot of war that instead of, water in the river, it's going to be blood in the river. It's going to be so much, death and killing and all that. And then Alaba also talks about, that at the end, there will be 4 atomic bombs in 4 different corners of the world will blow up. And then also a disease will come that a lot of people will die from it. So Mehrdad, hearing that, goes back, and then Alaba tells him, go back to Iran, tell everybody. That's okay, tell everybody. So he goes back to Iran and tells all the Persian that he gets in contact with. And then one of these fellows says, okay, when this is going to happen? Did Alaba say when this is going to happen? And then, there is no time related to all these. So Mehrdad didn't have an answer. So the next summer city, when he goes, they're sitting with Alaba between nurses' quarters. There was I think, a pandal that they would sit and eat. Hospital and nurses' quarter in that area. And Alaba and him are talking and eating, and suddenly Mehrdad remembers and says, oh, Alaba, yeah, you told me all that last year, but when is this going to happen? And then Alaba says, it will happen, it will happen. He didn't give him a time, but he says, it will happen when the disease will come that wipes out a lot of people, and then the money will be worthless, and then the train track between Kerman and Zahedan in Iran, there are 2 cities, Kerman and Zahedan. He says, when the railway between Kerman and Zahedan is constructed, this will start. It's a start, but it doesn't happen like a big blow up. It's going to be some fire here, the fire dies down, then it's going to start somewhere else, and keeps going like that, basically. So I think 10 years the railway between Kerman and Zahedan was made, and we can see a lot of turmoil that has started since 10 years ago, and it's going. I don't know if this pandemic is what Alaba referred to, but who knows? And the 4 atomic bombs, Mehrdad says, hasn't happened yet, so we don't know when it's going to happen. I kind of abbreviated everything, so I know we are running short on time. If there are any short questions, please ask. Otherwise, we let Mehrdad go.
Yes, just one question from Payam. She says, Aloba had so many wonderful analogies. I so wished I had recorded them. Can Mehrdad or anyone else recall some of them? And that includes you, Farshid. Do you remember any of his masal or analogies?
Well, I don't remember, but I asked Mehrdad. Mehrdad, هیچ مسئله چیزی از علابه یادت میاد که بگی یا روایتی که مثلا در مورد چیزی میگفت که به وقوع پیوسته یا
آره تا هم صحبتم چیز فکر کنم از کار جا انداختی که من موقع که داشت راجع به مریضیایی که می اومده که این خیلی ها میمیرن، من در من گفتم که خانم پزشکه یه چیز از این برو تو نمیفهمی. اینو بهشون گفتی؟
Yeah, that section, I abbreviated everything, but then Alaba said, there is going to be a lot of diseases and all that. Mehrdad says that my wife is a physician, and she says that any disease that comes, usually within 24 hours, they're basically cure for that, and nobody really is going to die from anything. And then he tells that to Alaba, and Alaba says, you don't understand. You don't know.
Okay, very good. I just want to thank both of you for the time that you have spent in telling stories of Alaba. And I think there's enough stories here that this should be continued. And I would like to ask Mehrdad to please jot down all the important ones that he wasn't able to share tonight or today, and come back to us with more beautiful stories. فرشید جان
مهرداد میگن که خیلی ممنونیم که اومدین، تشکر از داستانهای خیلی قشنگتون، ولی اینجا تمومش نمی کنیم. انشالله دوباره ازتون میخوایم که بیاین داستانهای بیشتری رو در آینده برامون بگید.
خواهش میکنم، ولی داستانا من به این صورته که خیلی چیزاش کوتاه میکنم، اون چیز خودش از دست میده، ولی یه زمانی باید باشه که خب اگه بخوان لذت ازش ببرن بتونیم خیلی چیزا رو گسترتر بکنیم. حالا در هر صورت
خیلی ممنون، متشکرم.
و تشکر از من thank you Jay Baba.
Jay Baba. Alan, now we would like to turn the floor to the people who would like to share their own stories of Aloba. I'm going to take spotlight off of Mehrdad. And of course, Mernoush was in the middle of telling a story, and I will ask her to please go ahead with her story. Let's take about 5 to 10 minutes to give a chance to also others to share. Mernoush John, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yes, so okay, here we are. So it was right after beloved Baba dropped his body in 1969, and then we were living in Iran, Tehran at that time, and first Sadiq Irani came, and then AliAkbar Shapurzaman Yazdi, which is Aloba, came to Tehran. And, you know, the word was spread that Aloba is coming, and he's one of the main disciple of Meher Baba. So many of lovers of God in Iran were actually, excuse me, eager to see him and to hear from him and hear his Baba stories. So it happened that there was a group of Darwish or Sufis in western part of Iran, in Kermanshah, and they heard through my uncle Khodabakhsh Mehrain that Mr. Shapurzaman Yazdi Aloba is coming to Tehran, and they, you know, ahead of time invited him to their hometown because they wanted to meet him and hear his Baba stories and so forth. So, you know, we were living in Tehran. I was 4 years old at that time. And it happened that Aloba chose my mother and her aunt, Khanum Homayun Keipur, who is the grandma of Parwane, Farkhonde, Mehnaz and Ardeshir, to and meet, because I was a child, so my mom didn't want to leave me behind, so I ended up going with them. So we left from Tehran by a bus, and we went to Kermanshah, and they came to greet apparently us. And when Aloba went, and then the team, the group came, and they were very welcoming, and they were very happy to see him. And the first question, I want to get my notes so I don't miss anything. Right away, all those stories that I'm sharing, it's my mother's story, and she shared it with me because I don't remember. I was so young, and I just remember a little part of it, but not into these details. So, Aloba, the first question that he asked the group of people who came at the bus station was, مهربابا خداست این را باور داری؟ مهربابا خداست این را باور داری؟ Yani that means Mehrbaba is God. You believe this? So when the group came to greet him, and Aloba asked one of the guys who was very keen with him that مهربابا خداست این را باور داری؟ و he repeated that 3 times. He wanted to make sure that the group know that he's there because of Mehrbaba and nothing else. And he also wanted to make sure that they know that Mehrbaba is God. And ultimately, the guy nodded his head and gave a smile and bended his head. So basically, they took Aloba and my mom and her aunt, Humayun Kapoor, and me into the house of their master. The master was a gentleman with a beard, but he was very well dressed up. And he, as soon as they entered, they were also a group of men all there. And my mom remembers there were about 45, 50 men and no woman in the house. And, the master greeted Aloba, and then in Iranian culture, we don't hug or embrace, but we kiss, like right, left, right. And, shake hands and all that. And then we joined, they gave us place to sit and all that. And Aloba did talk about Mehrbaba, all he did. And as you know, he doesn't sit, he stands up. So he was standing for hours giving talks and about Mehrbaba and Baba's divinity, and shared Baba's story. Then then after a while, it was getting late afternoon, then Aloba suddenly stopped the meeting and said, well, these ladies are hungry. Look, this kid, pointing to me, that she's hungry, she needs to eat. Bring them food. So at that time, everybody get up, and then they made the table ready and setting and all that. Actually, I think the people were sitting on the floor because we have that sofre that you sit on a cloth on the floor and eat. So they, provided a great meal. My mom remembers that it was like a festive, a lot of hospitality and a lot of love into that. So after the meal, Aloba continued to talk and all that until at night. Then they gave a separate room to me and my mom and her aunt, and a separate room to Aloba to stay. And again in the morning after breakfast, he non-stop talk about Baba and shared all his story and memory and all that. And everybody was just enchanted and loving to hear his stories. And at the end, everybody, all the men lined up and hugged and basically give respect to Aloba. Before they left that afternoon, we left that afternoon coming back home. And
Mehrdad, just one more little tidbit of most important memory of yours, and then we will go to other people who are waiting to share also.
All right. Well, my own memory is my Aloba always would come to me and say, "Did you have a Baba dream? Did you have a Baba dream?" And then I would share all the Baba dream with him. But then it was getting a habit to him because he used to go hear my dreams and go and share it to the woman mandali. And then the next day, the woman mandali would come, like Mera, would come my hand and say, "Oh, you dream of Baba, what is it? Let me know." And then she also would respond to every dream and says, "Oh, Baba told you, you have to follow his direction, you have to follow his order." So it was very nice that every trip that I made into Mehrzad, Aloba would come and grab me and say, "Tell me a story, tell me a dream." So that was, I'm very grateful to that.
That's beautiful, thank you. And I think Behnaz may have a little, she waved her hand, and I have two other people right now who are waiting. So Behnaz Jan, please go ahead if you can unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my mom actually wants to say something.
Oh, it was راجب علوبا یه چیز مهمی که تو نظرتون هست برای ما لطفاً. راجب علوبا.
من میدونم که علوبا یک روح خیلی پاک پیشرفته بوده و ایران رو خیلی دوست داشت و برای ایران همیشه دعا میکرد و فعالیت میکرد. حتی بابا پیش بابا همیشه میخواست که ایران باشه، ایران کمک ایران بکنه، کمک مردم ایران بکنه و بابا هم کرد و عشقش همه جانبه بود. این بود علوبا، این بود علوبا.
Yes.
علوبا و علوبا چقدر وقتی من و مرنوش رفته بودیم هند به ما کمک کرد تا ما تونستیم بیایم آمریکا. مرسی بابا. واقعا بابا میدونست چه مهرهایی رو انتخاب بکنه و همه مهرهایی که انتخاب کرد خاص خودش بود و کمک خودش بود به تمام کائنات. جای مهر بابا.
Jai Mehr Baba. Shirin is sharing with us her expression and her feeling about Aloba, that really his love was so pure and so universal. It was for Iran, for all Baba lovers, for the entire world. Always his heart was just so pure. And he also helped a lot, helped in the matter of doing Baba's work for Iran and for Baba lovers that he was in contact with, including Shirin and his family. So she was just expressing her gratitude about that love. We have another raised hand, Alan Ray Powell. Please go ahead.
Merci. If you were to say to me, Farshid or Mehrdad, Chole Shoma Shatorin, I would say to you, Cheli Chu. So the setting of my encounter with Alaba takes place in February of 1974 at Mehrzad. And I had been to Mehrzad a few times. This was my first visit to India, including Amar Tithi and Baba's birthday. And I had just returned from a couple of weeks with Pukar in Hamirpur. So there I am, in between Mandalay Hall and the porch to Baba's residence. And there's Mira, and I'm to play a couple of songs for her. And she calls out to me, and she addresses me as if I'm someone else. At the time, I had a long beard and much longer hair than I do now. Be that as it may, I let her know that I was not who she originally thought I was, played my songs, which she appreciated very much, and I went over to Mandalay Hall, and there was Erich. And the young man that Mira had mistaken me for was somewhat of a rascal. And I was not so comfortable that Mira had mistaken me for another. So it occurred to me that maybe Mir Baba wanted me to cut my hair. So there was Erich in Mandalay Hall, and I had a moment to approach him and pose that question to him. What do you think? Does Mir Baba want me to cut my hair? And he says, I don't have time for this. No time for this. Go see Mani. So, this repeats. I go to Mani, and Mani says, she doesn't have time for this. Go see Alaba. And I never really had any personal contact with Alaba. I knew him from 3 o'clock when he would call everybody to tea, and then around 5 o'clock when he would say at Mehrdad, collect your belongings, time to depart. So I approach Alaba, and he says, come. And we go to his room at Mehrdad. And it's a small room, about 8 by 12. And there are 2 cots, and I sit on one, he's sitting on the other. And he reaches for a little bag, and out of this bag, there are coins. And so he shakes the bag, and like throwing runes, he throws the coins. I had posed the question to him, do you think I should cut my hair? Does Mir Baba want me to cut my hair? So that's why he threw the coins. So I'm waiting for an answer, and here's what he says. Just as Erwin Luck earlier had said that when he left Baba, Baba told him to go back to New York to the meetings at Fred Ella's and tell folks there about his experience of being with Baba, and how Mehrdad and Farshid had said, go back to Tehran and tell everybody about Baba there. This is what Alaba had to say. He says, where do you live? Athens, Maine. Oh, Athens, Maine. Here's what you need to do. Go back to Athens and tell everyone, Avtar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And essentially that was it. So I pondered his answer to my question. And ultimately, I decided that it wasn't all that important to Mir Baba whether I cut my hair or not. Fast forward to August 10th of 1974. We're gathered under a 40-foot geodesic pandal. It's perhaps the first Western Sahavas. Erwin is there. Bob Holt is there. And of course, our guest of honor, none other than Pukar himself. And on Sunday, there were 125 of us gathered, and we were taking Baba's name, the Japa Mela, from 2 o'clock on Friday to the same time on Sunday. So on Sunday, we invited the community, the local community, and about 30 from the local community joined our group. Included amongst those in the group was a local newspaper reporter. Now, I had long since forgotten about Alaba's directive. And in the next issue of the local weekly paper, here's an article about Mayor Baba and our Japa Mela. And then, and it was only then, that I remembered Alaba's directive and experienced that it had actually come true. Because those in our local community, it was a small village of only 600, all got to learn a little bit about the Avatar. So, thank you, Alaba. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Thank you, Alan Ray, for that great story. Next, we have Al Grasso. Please go ahead.
Jai Baba, everyone. I'll tell you my Alaba story. Those of us who were around know that Alaba visited the United States, and I think Mani and Bao had some precautions for him. Anyway, he came to Washington, D.C., and my good friend Mohammed Salim, who's a Muslim from Pakistan, was his host, and we had picnics and sightseeing. And Salim actually came to Baba through me, but he became very close to both Alaba and Bao. And luckily for him, Alaba once said to him, he says, "You're Muslim. What are you doing smoking? You shouldn't smoke." And he stopped smoking. But anyway, this story takes place in the late 80s, early 90s. And those who know Alaba know he had an enthusiasm for sharing his Baba insights and Baba predictions. So I kind of kept my distance. I never asked him any questions or for advice. But this one particular time, I think I was there at Mehrdad, and he approached me and we started talking. And he says, "How long are you here for?" My intention was to be there for 2 months. You know, I usually go for Baba's birthday to Amartithi, and you can very easily do that in a month and a half. I said, "I'll be here till after Amartithi." And he says to me, "No, for you, not necessary. You stay Baba's birthday, then go home." I said, "But I just got here, Alaba. My ticket is for after Amartithi." "Not necessary for you. You stay Baba's birthday, then go home." And I kept pleading with him. He says, so he kind of relented. He says, "Okay, we flip coin." And I don't know if he said, "We'll let Baba decide." But he says, "Heads, you go home after Baba's birthday. Tails, you go home after Amartithi." And I'm sweating bullets. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, what am I going to do if it turns out to be heads? But luckily, it was tails. So he says, "Tails, you go home after Baba's birthday." I said, No. You said, heads I go after Baba's birthday. Tails I go after Amartithi." He says, "Okay, you stay till Amartithi." And then as an addendum to this, I was talking to Bao one time, and I don't think I was specifically talking about this particular story, but about flipping coins. When you're in doubt, you know, you flip a coin. But you have to be very, very honest about that, and whatever the coin says, you got to do. You can't change your mind, or you can't say 2 out of 3. So Bao says, "Al, that's not for you. Don't ever do it again." He says, "Your doubt is going to be part of your meditation." So since that time, I've never flipped a coin to make a decision again. So thank you all for listening.
Wow, that's a good advice and wonderful to know. Sometimes I'm tempted to flip a coin or do the Aloba, put something in the paper and ask Baba. I don't know if it's for me or not. Nobody said, so I'm in trouble. Okay, so any more questions, please raise your hand. Golnazjan, you must have some stories of Aloba and that you may like to share in English, in Farsi, whatever you want. Do you want to go? Do you want to share something?
Well, I have many stories from Aloba. I don't know which one to share, But Aloba was very close to our family and all the Persians. And I remember every time I used to go to India, he would come and welcome and embrace us and say, "شما گل‌های ایران هستید. شما گل‌های ایران هستید."
You are Iran's flowers.
He used to say, "You sit here, you sit here," and he was very organized and very particular. And he knew everything about your life, and everything so clear to him. I mean, he knew basically everything. There is so many things, but I really loved him very much. Okay, Baba.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Anybody else who would like to share? I have a little Alaba story of my own, but I'll wait until everyone's finished. We have 15 more minutes before we have a session, a jap session, or zikr, or repeating of Meher Baba's name. So that's on the calendar for us. But until then, I look forward to anyone sharing another tidbit or story. Nothing?
I have a story.
Okay.
Okay, that's, I was actually listening to one of the tapes of Aloba that I recently actually purchased at Avatar Meher Baba Circle of Friends, sale that they were having. So I was listening to it, and it was a beautiful sharing of Aloba. He says that when he went to Yazd, he got invited by his sister. He has a sister in a city of Yazd, and his family to come and have a dinner with them. But he also brought with him a movie of Meher Baba, and everywhere that he went, he would show that movie to the audience and so forth. So at the dinner time, it was his sister and his brother-in-law and some close relatives and family. And he started to play that video, but one of the relatives got kind of offended about Meher Baba, maybe. And he went and made a complaint to the police department that, yes, AliAkbar Shapurzaman Yazdi is here, and he's showing a movie of his master who claims to be God, and he's Sahib Zaman and all that. Come, police, come and, rescue all these people from him and so forth. So then minutes later, the police department, they came and then they investigate. They come inside the house and they said, "Who is AliAkbar Shapurzaman Yazdi?" And Aloba says, "Yes, that's me." And they say that, "Well, we do have a complaint about you that you are promoting a guru or a master, and you're saying that is a Sahib Zaman and God in human form, and all this crazy stuff, and you are have been called by the lead of the sheriff department to come, and we want to investigate who that Meher Baba is, who's that master." And yes, and he says, "Of course I will come." And he says, "I don't have money to pay for taxi to come there. You bring your car, you bring a cab, a police cab, and take me here with my movie and come." So, then the police says, "Okay, no problem, come into the car." So they took him to the sheriff or police office there. And he started to talk about Meher Baba, and then he also showed the movie of Baba. and there were like 45, 50, 55 police officers just all coming into the house, into the department to take a look at Baba's movie and take a look at it. And, the whole movie was long too. It's, went on for half an hour or so, and everybody was in silence, standing, and because there wasn't any room to sit. But people were actually standing, not the people, the police officers, and looking, all this time. And then at the end, he also gave a summary. And then, the head of the police department at the end thanked him. Thank you for letting us know about your spiritual brother. Thank you for coming, and you're welcome to go back. We didn't find anything false or anything wrong with this video. You're welcome to go back home. And then Aloba was very happy that that happened, because he said, if I would have shown that video in my sister's home, there were only like 5-6 audience. But since I took it to the police department, about 45 people or more were blessed to see Baba's video and movie. So that's another Baba Yazd story of Aloba.
That is wonderful. Jamshid, if you are still here, I sent you a message that please play some flute for us to end our program. I don't know if he's still here or whether he saw my message. Okay, I'll quickly share my little Alaba story. I went first time to India. It was 2001, about July timeframe, and my first time to Mehrdad. And I know nothing about anything as far as the whole India and Mandali, and my Baba contact urged me to go. And of course, my heart already knew about Baba, but my mind still had to be convinced. So I figured the only way my mind will be convinced is if I go and see what this is about. Go to his place and see and prove to myself that Baba is who he says he is, because he is either telling the truth or he's a pretty good joker. So my very first time, we get off the bus in Mehrdad, and this man comes to me, very, very animated. He comes and grabs my wrist and carries me back to the back, and it's Alaba, of course. And he starts talking Farsi to me and so forth, welcomes me, and with such warmth and enthusiasm and energy, so happy to see me, and takes me to his room back there in the back area. You all have probably seen the back alley. And he sits me down on a chair and he starts telling me everything. That I don't remember. We used to be in Mehrdad maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I can't remember. And he basically kept me there. He showed me his tattoo. He told me all his dreams. He told me the story of the Shah and Faradiba. And he told me all the highlight of his predictions for the world. He gave me the Reader's Digest version of everything that Alaba had to tell people. And so I'm taking it all in and enjoying. He also made me buy a locket for 10 rupees, which I still have. And then when it was time, he brought me out and put me on the bus. So I'm thinking, okay, this is nice. I had a very wonderful time with Aloba, but I didn't get to see anything. And I didn't get to see anybody else, and I didn't get to see Mehrdad. So this time I'm going to be smart. I am going to hide from him the next trip to Mehrdad. So next trip we come to Mehrdad, I get down the bus and I see him over there waiting, but I go behind the bus and I go the other way and make my way to the other areas of Mehrdad to see the women Mandali, and sit with them and do that. So on the way back, He's waiting by the bus. And he is so mad. He's like, where have you been? I have been waiting for you. And so this was just the passionate love that he had for us Iranians. And I took that not as an, I wasn't scared, but I was just like, oh my God, he cares about me this much that he was upset that I didn't wait for him or I didn't go with him. So that's my Aloba story. And Jai Baba. All right, anybody else? We have Babe.
Hey, Baba.
Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba. Does somebody know Alaba's
Rush out for tea.
Arti Alaba.
Arti, Alaba's Arti would be a nice way to end.
Yes.
Who knows that?
من میخوام بخونم.
Oh, Nasrin wants to do it. Nasrin, میتونیم عکستون رو ببینیم؟
نه، موهام خیلی ژولیده است. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Should I do it? Okay.
Go ahead, Nasrin.
مهربا مظهر حق مالک و پروردگار پاک یزدانی خدا انسان توی یا مرزگار تو زرادشت رام عیسی و محمد هم توی ایزدی دادار اهورمز خالق لیل و نهار هستی مسجود ملائک باشی معبود بشر در کلیسا و کنشتن عاشقانت بیقرار می پرستیم می ستاییم ما تو را از جان و دل بوسه زن بر آستانت ما شب و روز بار بار تو چراغ مهر و ایمان در دل و جانمان فروز تازه تو روشن شویم و راه یاب ای نامدار ذره ای از نور تو جانا اگر تابد به دل تابش دلمان کند خورشید عالم شمسار بندگی و آرتیمان را ز لطف خود پذیر ما ثناخوان توییم در هر مکان و هر دیار کی توانیم ما ستاییمت خدای مهربان آنچه در شأن تو گفتیم یک بود اندر هزار اوتار مهر بابا کی جای.
Thank you, Nasrin. That was beautiful.